Shalom. Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua Brakatah. Yahweh Shema Atam Ba'Shem Yahushua. This is the Isupk, started out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York in 1969. We're under commanding General Yohana, here to teach the truth of the Bible for so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians that they are the real Israelites that the Bible speaks of. Now, today being Friday, of course, we're going to go into the Lashawan Kodash. Kodash is the holy tongue. The ancient Hebrew is what we go over in these classes. All right. Keep in mind, of course, for those of you that tune in, you might be kind of new. I tend to keep this half of the screen filled with information for anybody that needs to jump in and start getting the use of the Hebrew language right away. Most importantly, the alphabet. I always like to mention that at the beginning of this class so that everybody that tunes in has a reference point, because when we start writing stuff like this, you're not going to understand it unless you start with this, right? So we've gone over the alphabet multiple times, and keep in mind, we tend to use the Lashawan Kodash in its ancient form, the ancient Hebrew that you see on the left column here. The Assyrian we use during Sabbath service because we read out of the Torah that uses that version of it, right? But keep in mind, you have the entire alphabet right here. You also have possessive adjectives, prepositions, and some other common laws to keep in mind when it comes to Hebrew that you're going to see plenty of examples of today. Because today, what we're going to do is we're going to go into Deuteronomy chapter 6, and we're going to start breaking down some of these sentences that you see in Deuteronomy. It's a great place to start because it uses a lot of different, sentence structure rules, vocabulary, and common phrases that are used amongst the nation of Israel in today's time. So what you're going to see here first is what we went over last week. Last week we went over was numbers from 1 through 10 and to 100 in intervals of 10, right? So we're going to briefly recover some of that information. We're going to go over that and review it. All right. And so we're going to start off by counting from 1 to 10 in the ancient Hebrew. Those of you how to read the ancient Hebrew, you can follow along with us. All right. And it goes as follows: Chad, Shah, Shalah, Arabai, Chamash, Shashah, Shabai, Shamawana, Thashai, Asherah. And that's how you count down from 1 to 10. We're going to count down backwards now. All right. Because we can get used to counting from 1 to 10. Now we got to learn how to mix it up and things like that. I don't want to spend too much time on this today because we're going to go more in depth on this at a later date. And so I'll prepare classes for that later on. But this is the basic. Couple things you need to keep in mind too before we go and read this backwards. I have these new numbers written next to it to give you an idea of what number we're actually using. But because we're using the Lashawan Kodash and we're pronouncing it in the ancient Hebrew, we're not saying 1, 2. How it's pronounced in Hebrew. This is almost like you that are just now tuning in. It's almost like as if I'm spelling out the number, right? You see? What would be faster, writing the actual number or writing the spelling of the number? It's always going to be writing the actual number itself. That's always going to move faster. That's always going to be a much quicker way to, write down the numbers that you're trying to memorize. Go ahead and pull up another chair over here. I want to try to make sure everyone's near the fans, all right? And be mindful of the wires too, Baba Shah. So again, for those of you that are just now tuning in, if you'd like to, go ahead and take a what we have here on the screen. What we've covered is the numbers from 1 through 10 and then from 20 to 100. And we're just briefly going over that real quick before we get into today's lesson. I'll give y'all a minute to take down what's on the screen, and I'll make sure to share and like the class so that everybody can see it. Yeah. All right. Copy. I'll give y'all about a minute here to get that information. Hey, Shalom says, how you doing? To cool, cool. So, yeah, no, it was really starting to click. Officer Copyar, he really started to get the hang of the pronunciations and things like that. What's really going to be difficult is what I'm about to mention here in a second, because, like I said, I have it written down that way so that we can learn how to say it. Right? I'll give it another moment here. How's the screen look? Everybody is. I know there's a glare on the screen. We're just gonna have to kind of deal with that. All right. If it gets too crazy, we start, missing a lot of information. Just let me know in the chat what you're having trouble seeing, and I'll make sure to put it on the board in an area where you're better able to see what's being written on the board. Okay. That's just how we get the lighting in the classroom. So bear with us while we, get everything set up right. You can point that fan at you too. We got that little AC unit too, so it's blowing air. Let's see. It's cold air, yeah. Yeah, whenever we setting up class, just make sure this is running. You know what I'm saying? It's been running. All right, I'm almost done. Make sure that you make sure you got the class. Go ahead and share that on your Facebook and everything. You know what I'm saying? I don't care if your uncles and aunts and grandma got something to say. They need to learn this at some point. All right. So again, let's count again from 1 to 10. All right. Starting with what we have here. Let me get out the way so y'all can see. All right. Go ahead. Achad, Shanya, Shalash, Arabai, Hamash, Shasha, Shabai, Shamawana, yeah, Thashai, and Aishara. All right. Now, again, counting from 1 through 10, as you see, we have it written like this so that you can know how to pronounce the characters. 1, 2, 3, Achad, Shanya, Shalash. But in shorthand, it's actually using the character system. Ah, ba, ga, da, ha, wa, za. So you're gonna also have to start getting used to saying Achad and knowing that the ah represents the number 1. Okay, because the Hebrew number system actually just uses the letters in the alphabetical order to represent 1 through 10. You understand what I'm saying? And so ah is 1, ba is 2, ga is 3, da is 4, ha would be 5, wa would be 6, za would be 7, kha would be 8, ta would be 9, and ya would be 10. So that's something we'll worry about later on. We'll get more practice with that so that we can start to understand that better. All right. And that's kind of it's almost like using A, B, C, D, E instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that is where people will have to start getting that trained into their memory so that they understand that when you're dealing with numbers, you do use those characters for that. Okay. Now, counting from 10 down to 1 would be Aishara. All right. The shot. Go ahead. Shamawana. Mm-hmm. Shabai. Shasha. Kamash. Arabai. Shalash. Shanya. And Achad. Okay. So being able to go 1 through 10, 10 through 1, being able to jump around. If I just point to 1, you should be able to say it, because 1, you're able to read it. That's the easy thing. But remembering what it is, that's the tricky thing. If I just point to this, what is this? What about this? What about this? The shy. What about this? Kamash. Right. No, we're going to be able, I'm now, at some point, I'm going to have this erased and I'm just going to have the number or the character that represents the number, and then you'll be able to know what it is just from, you see what I'm saying? It comes through repetition. That's really the only way you're going to learn any language, is from seeing examples of it enough to where you can then implement it. That's how children learn languages growing up. Anyways. Come on. Shalom, Lord Christ. So again, what we're doing is we're just recapping what we went over last week. We're going to count from 1 through 10. Then we're going to start adding the 20 through 100, okay? Not to get too complicated, but you're going to realize that it's not as difficult as you think as long as you start to get these basics down. So again, we got Achad. Y'all repeat after me. Shinya, Shalash, Arabai, Chamash, Shasha, Shabai, Shamawana, Thashai, Aishara. 20 is Aisharayam. Because again, when you're using a plural version of something, you add a yam to the end of it. So multiple tens would actually mean 20. Asharayam. You would say that? 30, Shalashyam, which is what? Shalash would be 3. So imagine Shalash Yum would mean a lot of threes, multiple threes. In fact, 10 threes is what that represents. Shalash Yum. 4 would be Arabayam. Y'all see that? Arabayam, because it follows after the number 4. We're just adding a yum to the end of it. 50 would be what? Kamashim, correct. 60? Shashayam. 70? Shabayam. How about 80? Shamawanium, exactly. I know that looks confusing. People are like, why is the number that long? That's how you spell it, right? Shamawanium. But that's how it's pronounced. What about 90? The Shayam. And then finally 100, Ma'ah. Ma'ah. We won't go beyond 100 right now, but Ma'ah just means a lot. You know, Ma'ah. So we'll go ahead and we're going to go ahead and take that screen here. Okay. Today, what we're going to start doing is, much like how during Sabbath service and whenever we've gone over the prayers, we're starting to get into the rhythm of using the Hebrew in a more complete sense, right? Which means what? Using it in sentences, being able to break down sentences, translate sentences that we see in the Bible Hub app. Whenever we go to any of our scriptures in the Old Testament, right? What you're going to need for class today is on your phone. Just like when we go to Sabbath service, you're going to go to the Bible Hub app, all right? The Bible Hub app, the interlinear version of the Bible Hub app is what we're going to use to read Deuteronomy chapter 6 today. I want to get right into it because we're going to start. I mean, obviously, there's an entire chapter here, so there's a lot to go through. We're just going to chip away at it and possibly even continue this next week. Because when you're talking about writing an entire chapter in ancient Hebrew, that's not going to be, it's not a simple thing to do. You know what I'm saying? So what we'll do is I'm going to put this on the board. That way you could see what we see on the app, except I'm going to actually write it in the ancient Hebrew so that you're seeing both of them at the same time. All right. And if you have notes like what Officer Taziyar has, which is great, you want to write this down. You want to write down what I'm writing down on the board because I'm going to be writing down what you're seeing on the app, but in the Lashwan Kodash, Deuteronomy 6. We're going to start at verse 1. All right. Now this verse has quite a bit. All right. So, and this, let me see. Yeah, the Bible Hub app. So whenever you want to hit this one right here, INT. That doesn't mean international version. That just means interlinear. Okay, and then you just use this drop down to then select it. You see how it is up top? Try that right there, because those will have. That's kind of how you navigate it right there. We got quite a bit to write. Give me a moment while I write this down, and in the meantime, reading it out loud. In fact, Kabiyar, you could lead the way because I know you're pretty strong with the Hebrew. You can come up here, and I want y'all to start reading Deuteronomy chapter 6, just like how you do during Sabbath service. It's no different. Start off with what we're looking at right here. Okay. Yeah. What's up? The way that it says it? Are you talking about the way that it says it backwards? That's a great question. So Hebrew is not only read from right to left, but things are put in place in a different order than in English. In English, we're used to saying things like this. How do I say? Exactly. So it's almost like it whatever person you're talking about, what they're doing a lot of the time supersedes what who we're talking about. And that's another reason why you start to see a lot of things like this, or where's it at? Plural pronunciations, ha or wa or tha in some cases, or ya and tha. There's a good example. Prepositions. Prepositions are usually at the beginning of the phrase as you read from right to left, of course, right? That will kind of prepare you to understand if it's talking about a male or a female. And then it'll bring up the name of the person at some point or whatever is being spoken about, right? So Hebrew, that's just how the structure is, right? Let's start with here. Let me finish this here. We know. Oh, I'm tripping. We will definitely explain here in more detail. Wahama Shapayam Ashar. Yeah. I know that we can't quite tell what it's saying it, but I'm gonna actually go back over it now with the green marker and write it in English so that you actually can see exactly what the app says, right? So it goes like, and this. Go ahead and read it now, Capiar. And this, the yeah, you definitely want that to stay connected. stop that. All right. That's a pretty full screen that we got, right? I don't want to put much on the screen, but I do want to have enough there that we can really chew through. Go ahead and read through it though, and I'm finishing up this part right here. That's exactly where I'm at. All right. So we'll start from the top again. And this, what's the first thing we notice about how this starts? Look at it. Notice that it's two phrases. It says, and this, waza'ath. Waza'ath. Let's look at the rules. If you look on your, let me see. And. There we go. Look at your prepositions, right? A preposition is something that's put at the of the word or phrase that's being written. Now, obviously, when you look at Hebrew, you look at it in groups of words that are put together, right? Or at least the understanding of it is we know in English as two different words put together. In Hebrew, it's really just one phrase modified to represent what portrayed. What does it mean? And this. If you look at your prepositions, where do you see that wa? You see how it says waza'ath? Y'all seeing that? Look at the preposition, and what you're going to see, and line right up with wa. This is the basics. This is something that we've seen plenty of times by now, right? Like when we're doing the prayers, right? You see that during the blessings prayer. And this. So as far as the vocabulary, what you're learning is a za'ath would mean this in this case. So waza'ath would mean and this. Okay. Another one that we see all the time in the Bible is ha, which means the. And you're gonna see the. I'm pretty sure the is probably the most used word in the Bible. So you're gonna see a preposition of ha in front of what we're talking about. Ha matazayah. Matazayah would mean commandment. Okay. Matazayah would be commandment. Okay. And so hamatazayah would mean the commandment. So when we say the phrase waza'ath hamatazayah, you see that? How it's starting to flow? Go ahead. Yeah, hamatazawa. Did I say ya? The water. Hamatazawa. Hamatazawa. Okay. Possess. Yeah. Hamatazawa. Let's look at this one right. The statutes. Again, same thing where you have ha at the beginning of it. And then you have, I'm pretty sure there's either hakwa or is hak. I'm just gonna, you know what? I think this is actually pronounced like this. Ha ha, because the word statutes actually is similar to the word wisdom, and wisdom is what is it? It sounds kind of like this. The word wisdom. And so statutes is kind of like the same word because statutes means what? Commandments. What's another word? Morals. And morals and wisdom go hand. And so ha kwayum, okay? Ha kwayum with the statutes. Okay? You see that? Another let me get one of these because as we go through this, we're actually kind of messing with some of this vocabulary here, right? The vocabulary that you see right here. What's the base word of this long smorgasbord of information? And judgments. Okay, so break it down. And would be wa. Okay, and but here's the thing. It also says the. It says wa ha ma, and then it says let me see. Where's my prepositions? Ma. There might be some other prepositions that aren't on this list that you actually see here, because you see wahama shapatyam on here. Of course, there are multiple judgments that are being said, and so yam is again going to be used because we're talking about not just one judgment but multiple judgments. And the word judge is the root word of this, and that is shapat. Okay, just like Officer Shapat, his name means judge. I don't know if you knew that. Officer Shapat's name means judge. And so, seeing it in a sentence, what is this showing us? It's showing us that that is the root word, and that you have these modifiers here to complete the thought. So, wahamashapatyam. Let's read what we got so far. Let's see if we could sound intelligent reading this. Go ahead. Wazaath. Hamatazawa. That's tough. Ha ha kwa yum. Okay. Wahama shapatyam. Wahama shapatyam. That's how it's written in the app, right? Wahama shapatyam. The more we see examples of this, the more it's going to stick, because you're going to start seeing the same words a lot, like debar, right, which means to what? To or a moth, which would mean man. Ha, which means the, things like that. You're going to see more of it. Okay, and so get some of the. Now, here's an interesting thing to keep in mind. We see the commandment right here, where it says Hama tazawa. Has commanded is what? Tazawa. Hama tazawa. So let's break that down. So when you're looking at let me see. The is sometimes referred to as a she that's doing something, but ma, and this is how you're seeing it in Yiddish right there. Sometimes they'll use ma the same way that we use ya, which would mean what? That it belongs to somebody. And that's why it says wahamashapatyam, because whose judgments are they? They're the Lord's judgments, the Lord being a man. You see that? And that's why you see hamatazawa here, because the commandment is what? The, and then tazawa, which means command. Tazawa, you see it right here, but it is the Most High that's saying it. So you're always using these modifiers to remind people that it is either a male or female that's saying it. If it was a woman that was giving a commandment to like her child or something like that, it would say wa. Sorry, it would say ha tha tazawa. Does that make sense? Ha tha tazawa. Now it says hama tazawa. Let's read this again, and then we're going to continue. Okay, so we got wahamashapatyam. Wahamashapatyam. All right, moving forward, which is ashar. And I'm not talking about no, flying broom witch. It just means witch, like how we use the word witch when we're trying to specify something. Ashar. And then the word command is what? Tazawa. Now, I don't know if you realize it, but you are reading Hebrew very well compared to 2, 3, 4 months ago, because you're starting to look more at this than this. You understand that? That's how I know there's progression here, because y'all are able to look at this and pronounce it, and I'm using these to kind of help guide you on what's pronounced by itself and what's tied with the other characters. And so the more you're getting this, the more it's going to make more, just going to become more, what's the word? Second nature. Okay. So Ashar, Tazawa, and we all know this, Yahweh, which is the Most High, right? Your God. Now here's another rule that is being implemented here. Let's see. Possessive adjective, right? Which is added where on the word? At the end, right? Your. There it is. Your. Plural. You see your right here where it says ka? Your is this is addressing an entire nation of people, but since there are men that are involved, you're going to use the plural version, which is kam. Allah haya kam, your God. Now it's not saying you specifically you, but you as a nation. So you see kam being used there. Allah hayakam, Allah hayakam, your God. Allah haya means power, right? Just like how Allah hayam means powers, like the angels, right? So your God, Allah hayakam. That's why you see it written that way. Okay, that's why it's modified that way. So now we understand that to teach. Well, we know the word la because we say la yasha Allah every Saturday service when we say to Israel. So teach is what? Lamad. La lamad. You see that? La lamad. And again, for those of you that are tuning in, what we're seeing here is that we're starting to understand how to differentiate where the root word is versus the modifier that allows us to put the sentence together. And if you could do it that way, eventually you'll be able to reverse engineer it and say things on your own to represent certain meanings. Like if I say, let's just break this word out real quick, teach, right? Lamad, right? How do I say and teach? To read and teach. And it would just be adding a wa to it, right? So you'd just be putting that, right? That's it. How do I say teach? How do I say? It might not be the best word to use. Let me say this. So how do I make this belong? How do I make the word teach apply to a male or a female? Lamad, you had it right. It's at the end. You see that? Lamadwa means to teach him. You see that? To teach him. Or if it's a she, it'd be what? Lamad ha. Ha, right here. Oh, yeah, I guess that would be similar, right? Or teach me. How do I say teach me? Lamad, Lamad ya. Or I teach. That's what that would mean. Salakia. Lamadya, which means I teach. Or he teaches or she teaches. You know what I'm saying? I think the word taught or to be taught is a different word. So I won't get caught up on that. We're going to just kind of stick with the example we have here because we know that's exactly what it's talking about. I think it's athakam, atha, right? When we say you, we say atha, right? And so to make it mean you as in multiple people, we're just doing the same thing we just said right here. Athakam, athakam, right? And so that's all that is. When you start putting it more sentences together, it starts to flow pretty well. I'm going to leave that on the screen there, and I want y'all to look and see what are some of the vocabulary words that we picked up just from this sentence. We've picked up on the word command, tazawa, right? We looked at it in multiple ways because you see where it says the commandment is hama tazawa, and the ma is there again because it's the Most High that's saying it, which is going to refer to it as a him, right? So the ma is there as a preposition for that. Then we have command there at the bottom, which is tazawa. What's another one? Statutes. Hakwa. Hakwa would mean statute. Okay. Judge, as you see in the long term that's in the middle that says and judgments, where it says wahamashapat yum. Wahamashapat, judgments that again belong to the Most High, and that's why the ma is there. And the judgments. Okay. Now let's read this one more time and then we'll continue. All right, starting from the top. Waza'ath, Hamatazawa, Hahakwim. We use this in one of the prayers, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, now Wahamashapatyam, Ashar, Tazawa, Yahweh, Alahayakam, Lalamad, Athakam, or Athakam. Athakam. This is probably a cooler way to say it. Doesn't sound suspect in any kind of way. The people get afraid to say the word "kam" because they're thinking of nasty shit. You need to stop doing that. This is the Lashawan Kodash. All right. Now, how do we move on from there? Let me get more of that verse. Was there more on that verse? Y'all think that I'm going to be the only one doing this the whole time. Y'all are going to be coming up here and you're going to be writing in the Hebrew as well, because I want to see that you have the ability to quickly go between Assyrian and ancient. That's what we're doing here. That's why I'm doing it this way, because we're reading it in the Bible Hub app, which uses the alphabet that's on the right. But when I'm writing it on the board on the fly, and mind you, when you see me writing it, I'm doing this on the fly. I'm just using the ancient Hebrew characters, right? And then what are we doing? When we go in, we're not speaking the Yiddish that's in that Bible Hub app in the older form. So after it says to teach you, it says that you may observe them in the land which you are crossing over there to possess, right? So it says that you may observe them, right? So that's La I Sha Wath. La Aishawa. All right. Land Ba Arataza. It's another one we see quite often, right? Ba Arataza. Okay. Ashar. We're starting to see that quite often. Now we understand that Ashar means witch, so you got to add that to your vocabulary because you're going to be using that a lot. A thumb. We already know what that is. A thumb. A thumb. You, plural, right? I. That's a good one. Ibarium. Ibarium. Again, I'm gonna write the English characters on the top there that are. It says Shema. 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 To possess. So La, which means to, and then Ra. Tha. La. Rashatha. Boom. Now looks like we're getting somewhere, right? Let's get that into English. Break it down. Okay. Copyard, go ahead and say the word as I write it in English, but then say it in Hebrew. So where it says that you may observe, that's right here. You may. La Aisharat, exactly. Baratza, in the land. Technically, Ba Ha-arataza would also be correct, right? Ba Ha-arataza would technically be correct as well because the is there. But because we speak with Ebonics, like we say, inland. You know what I mean? Like we're just saying it possible. Ba-arataza, which exactly you go ahead. Are crossing over. Shema. There. Shema is there. And then to possess. La Rashatha. La Rashatha. Quick, give me Isaiah 14. Israel. Give me verse La Rashatha. No, I'll skip that. We're good on that. Don't worry about that right now. That's a whole different word. It's a different version of possess. Okay. I wanted to see if it looked the same. Go ahead and go back to Deuteronomy. We're just going to stay in chapter 6. All right. And we're just finishing up verse 1. All right. So starting from the beginning of that phrase there, it says that you may observe, it is la'ishawath. You see that? La'ishawath. In the land. How do we say that? Ba'aratazah. 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 Which, Ashar, you, a thumb, are crossing over Ibarium. Ibarium. So what does Ibar mean? Ibar means to cross over. Ibarium. Ibar. The R is technically not, doesn't even need to be there. No, because R is not one of the prepositions. At least not on this list. So I don't see it there. Ibar though is a word. It means to cross over. Okay. Yam means that who's actually crossing over. Multiple people are, right? Crossing over. There is Shema. And then to possess is what? La Rashatha. La Rashatha. La Rashatha. All right. I wanted to get Deuteronomy 6 and 4, but I doubt we'll be able to get that far today. Okay. Because that's where we hear the creed. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, right? And we're going to continue from that because that would be something to say. You know what I'm saying? To complete that, to go beyond just saying the Lord our God is one. You know what I mean? Having more scriptures is always a good thing. And so having them in Hebrew is also, an important thing to have too. So now we're going into verse 2. So go ahead and pull that up on the Blue Letter Bible app. I'm going to get that example on here. That you may fear Yahweh your God to keep all his statutes and commandments, which I command you and your son and your grandson all the days of your life, that your days may be prolonged. That is a long sentence. This will probably take up the rest of the class right here. So we're going to take this bit by bit, okay? Don't even sweat it. It says that, let me see. Because it's, like I say, Hebrew has a different sentence structure. What's an example of what we do in English that does that? Yeah, like say, like, man, like say, he has skill cooking in the kitchen, right? It's almost like Hebrew is kind of saying it the way Yoda would say it. He'd be like, and he has, right? Right? So that's kind of like you got to be on your Yoda status. You know what I'm saying? I don't even want to compare it. A little green alien, right? Everybody likes that little what's his name, Grogu, Baby Yoda. Everybody likes that little dude, man. It's a fictional character. It doesn't exist. Your God. But that's exactly how. I mean, you think about it. That's kind of how Hebrew is, right? So Yoda, it's almost like they did that on purpose when they made him because he's supposed to be the wise, set apart character, right? So of course he would talk like that. Oh, what's that? That's all good. All right, so what's that first phrase there? Lama ein. La ma ein. Lama ein. Lama ein. Oh, Slovakia. That's actually two different phrases. My bad. La ma ein. Lama ein. That. Lama ein means that. So if you're pointing at something, they bring that here. I want to, instead of hear you saying that, I want you to say what? Lama ein. Lama ein. You know what I'm saying? Start using the vocabulary. We're seeing the vocabulary more and more. Start using it. You know what I mean? The bar, Shemai, which means to hear. You know what I mean? We're starting to get more verbiage. Now, you go to Facebook, brothers are saying Tuwab, Ayanda bar, cool. Put some more Hebrew on there. Make it more us. Make it more One West. You know what I'm saying? It's One West to say Tuwab. It's One West to say Yahweh Shai. It's One West, and it's One West to use the Hebrew all the way. You could pioneer that. You could pioneer the language back on the earth today. No one else is doing this. No, not to this extent. We were like babes trying to read Hebrew in the during the Sabbath service just a year ago. Now we're coming into this with a much more fluid sense. Imagine 30 years from now, 50 years from now. Imagine your children and grandchildren being able to read this better than you ever could. You know what I mean? And so it starts with that. That's why this class is so heavy, because when we do this, we're doing like we are taking back our culture. That's exactly what we're doing right here. So that's a very powerful thing. All right. And in a minute here, I'm gonna have y'all finish up some of these words. So I want to make sure y'all are paying attention. Yeah. Uh-huh. What's that? Thayara. 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 Yahweh. There's your tetragrammaton right there. Yahweh. Your God. Your God. Now, notice that what is the difference between this and then the previous sentence that we saw where your God was used? This time it's a little bit more direct to a specific person, because when we saw it in the previous sentence, Allah ha. In the previous sentence, it was your plural, and it said Allahayakam, right? Allahayakam. But this one, it says your God, Allahaya, with a ka at the end. So how does that get pronounced? Allahayak. Allahayak. Technically, you could say Alahaya ka. That's fine. Some words actually do that. Some words actually flow better when you say it that way. But Alahaya, Alahayak, just like how we said Alahaya Khan. It's basically just with Hebrew, and again, there's more specifics. There's more rules that are in play here that you may not really. They're more advanced topics. Though we're putting whole entire sentences together, there's some rules that we're not purposefully, because then that's just going to give us more understanding of it. Where when we go over those things, you'll be like, oh, that's why it's like that. That's why it connects at the end, or that's why this word gets put here, or this phrase gets put here to give it that certain meaning. And that's why those light bulbs click when you hear words that have yam at the end, or any of these other rules that we're putting into play. This is just the basics. There's more to just this. You know what I'm saying? So getting this down prepares us for when we get into more complicated stuff. To keep, la, which to are. Now we the versatility of the Hebrew language, because we know what shamar means. It means to watch. But what do you call a shepherd that watches over his flock? They call them a keeper. Shepherd is also known as what? A keeper, because he watches over the flock. So the word shamar also means to keep, to gather, to hold on to protect, to watch over, right? And so what you're doing with the Most High's laws is you're watching over them, you're keeping them, you're guarding them. You know what I'm saying? It's like the language, because it's versatile like this, it makes the sentence more intimate, because now you're understanding the root of it and the versatility of the language. When we say to keep his commandments, you're not just reading it and then doing it. You're owning the commandments. You're protecting it. You know what I'm saying? You're watching over it constantly. You don't just glance out at the kids playing in the yard when they're jumping on the trampoline and then just go back inside and not do something else for 2 hours. You're going to check on them constantly, right? And so just something as simple as the word keep being used in this sentence makes it that much more powerful in understanding just what you're doing with the commandments, because you are watching over it. You're the one that is representing it. You know what I'm saying? To keep means lashamar, to keep. And that's what your brothers do over you when you're at the Passover. When you had brothers that were standing around randomly looking like they were just there, no, they were keeping watch over you. They were making sure you were protected. You understand what I'm saying? You're supposed to do the same thing with the commandments. To keep. All right. I don't know why I did that. Hold on. Keep all. It's call. Call. All and call are the same thing. We see call all the time, but you know what I'm saying? How do I say all you? Mm-hmm. Or all y'all. This is what we always like to say. You all. If we use the word call for the word all, we'll clean that up a little bit. It's funny too, because that looks like a K already, right? It's just backwards. The white man does everything backwards. He takes everything, he flips it around. You can't even keep like looks like this. Why you gotta go in? You know what I'm saying? At least he kept za and la the same. We know that, okay? There's no change in that, because if he tried to turn that over, then it would look like an N, and that's something else, right? So what he couldn't twist around, he didn't. But what he could, he sure as hell did, right? All, call. You all, preposition. Let me see. Oh, it's actually it's a possessive adjective. Yeah, you. Call. His statutes. Again, we're going to start seeing the same rules being applied all throughout, okay? His statutes is written as cha, qua. There goes that root word again, qua, or qua, and then it says tha, and then ya, and then wa. Ka, qua, ya, wa. Let's see. Ya, wa. Ya, wa. His statutes and his commandments, which would be wa. There goes that ma again. Taza, wath. Yeah. Wa ma taza wath. Yeah, wa. That's tricky. So what are we seeing here? Remember before when we saw the word command is tazawa. It was a tazawa with a it was tazawa with the ha at the end, right? That's how command looked in the previous sentence. But over here, we're seeing tazawath yawa. Tazawath yawa. Now it sounds like something we would say during the prayers, because think about it. Wa ma tazawath yawa. Like we would be saying stuff like that because we're used to saying it all the time during the Sabbath service. This, we're just building those long phrases, right? But not only are we able to say them, we're understanding how they come to be, how they're made to be this way. Okay. So what do we know? And is wa. Slack. The preposition for his is ma. Okay. And then you have tazawath, which is command, not just one command, but multiple commands. Tazawath Yawah. Again, some more rules may being applied here that we haven't covered yet. So just take that with a grain of salt. Have this written down in your notes. Get some examples of some of these things so that you could go back to them once we go over some of those other rules. You'll understand it completely why it's like that. A disclaimer, some of these things don't even apply to ancient Hebrew. Some of the things that you're seeing actually are more catered specifically to Yiddish. So as we go and learn, as we learn as we go, some of these things, some of these words don't even need to have some of these characters. Like when we went and read the number 2, Shinya. Oh, shalash. When we read the number 3 in one of the previous classes, when we were going over examples of it, it said shalawash instead of shalash. Just like how when somebody says shalom, shalom is the more simple version of that. Shalom is just the Yiddish understanding of the word shalom, which can be there. It doesn't need to be there. It depends on who's saying it and why they're saying it the way they are. So we know the Yiddish, they say shalom, but why are they saying shalom? Technically, they're not incorrect for saying shalom, but why are they incorrect to us? Because we try to go with the root form of the Hebrew and not stuff that's influenced by the Caucasian race. Does that make sense? So even some of these terms that we see, as we get more understanding on how to break them down, they'll be more and more precise to the ancient Hebrew, and there will be less rules that are applied that will really just confuse you when it doesn't need to be that way. So we're just trying to basically bring the language back to its original state. No? Slacky. I'll give y'all a second to write down what you need to write down. Go ahead. Oh, snap. The board looks kind of blurry. Let me see if I can fix it. Let me see. It looks real. Slacky, give me a moment here. It looks real washed out at the moment. Hold on. Caviar, can you adjust the camera real quick? It's getting a real strange blur on it. To the left a little. Oh, you know what? I know why it's doing that because okay. I have to take off the virtual background. That's why. Yeah, it's fine now. It's because we were using green, so it was trying to put the background over the green. Yeah. That's what it does, man. That's what it does. It just looks like it's a little too bright. Can you turn off one of those lights? Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. We got the remote. Let me see. Yeah, that helped a lot. So you don't even need to be that bright. If anything, that's just putting more heat in here anyway. What time is it? We'll do one more phrase because it's 8:06, and my instructions are for these Hebrew classes not to overwhelm y'all. So these are not going to be like 2-hour classes. If y'all notice, these classes usually go about an hour and a half at most, right? Because it's a lot of information to absorb at once. And last thing that we do is make you feel like you're back in school where you were trying to fall asleep in class because you were not engaged with what you were learning in school. Here, we're trying to keep you engaged, and sometimes that's best done in spurts, right? Normal class is different, but Hebrew class is almost like you doing mathematics. It's just learning a whole new language, right? That's not easy. Which I command you and your son all the days of your life, that your days may be prolonged, or that maybe prolonged your days. There's that Yoda speak again. You know what I'm saying? So y'all see that, right? I'm gonna write it in the okay. So you know what? Here's what I'll do because I want to get y'all some shine too. I'm gonna write the what we're about to put on here in English, right? Which all right, Taziar, you want to come up here and write it? You got it? Let's get it. So again, what we're doing is it's real simple, really. It just takes a little bit of time to get it down. So whatever phrase, like you want to use your phone, you want to get your phone. Yeah, mine's almost dead too. You can use mine though. So basically, whatever word that lines up with the phrase, you're writing it in the Hebrew. So just to kind of show you the first one, you see a shar. Well, we know a shar in the ancient Hebrew is going to look like this, right? A shar. I, and then we're just gonna put that on there, and then when you spell it out, you'll get an idea on how you're gonna say it. Anakia, right? Other way, the yeah. Make sure you got plenty of room because you got some big words there. Yeah, Anakia. Yeah. No, 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 no. I by itself, I is Anakia. So you just want to make sure it fits right there. Basically, you're basically just copying what's on the Blue Letter Bible app, except you're translating it to ancient Hebrew at the same time. Yeah, exactly. Knock. Exactly. Put a ka there, right? Perfect. And then just put the ya. Mm-hmm. The ya, like for Yahweh, right? It looks like that little funky F. Yeah, there you go. So now that we've done that, do what I've done here. A knock ya. So we know that ah is pronounced by itself, and knock is put together, and then ya is pronounced by itself. And that just kind of helps you remember how to pronounce it better. Command. Go ahead. Go ahead. What's the name? Ma Tazawak. Tazawak. What's it like? You see it one more time? Yeah, that's my Tazawak. No. The Tazah is actually both the Ta and the Za. So you don't have to worry about that. Ma Tazawak. Wa looks like a what? A Y, right? There you go. Ma Tazawak. Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. Now, why is it a wak? When you look at it, what is that? That's an end ka, right? End ka. That's why you see that long stroke that goes beyond the bottom of all the other characters. That's how you know it's an end ka and not a wa, or you know what I mean? Like that's technical stuff, but that's why I like the Hebrew, because you don't gotta worry about all them end versions. You just have to recognize it on there. Taza wak. Go ahead and write the connectors and stuff. Ma tazaz by itself, and then wak. You. Perfect. Yep. Other way. Gotta get used to that. Mosaic Christ, though. Is there anything else? Is that it? Tha. So now put the ha. Ha looks like that backwards F with the extra line. Now, how do we write the connectors on that? And then tha and ha are put together, so connect them. A tha. You see that? When we say barakatah, this is how it's written. A tha. So technically it's a tha, and a ha, but the tha and the ha are connected, so it's just tha. And your son. That's a good one. It's gonna be wa what? Wa wabanak. 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 Mm-hmm. Ba. Yep. See, this is an officer in the UPK. He knows his Hebrew alphabet. Waba nak. So nah. What's nah look like? We know nah. You got it. Nah. There you go. And then again with the ka. All right. So now you're applying it. So go ahead. Wabanak. Now here's the trick. Now before we move forward, look at this real quick, because the word son is ban, right? Right? We say your name, right? When you do your registry, ban Yahawada, ban Yashala, ban Zabalawan, ban Yashala. So we know ban is actually the base word, but it's not saying wabanka. Why is it different now? Because here's the possessive adjective ka, which means your, right? And then when it's your son, this possessive adjective is added, and so it replaces the way that it's pronounced because it's connected to the last letter of ban. So banak is what it becomes. It changes it from saying ban to banak. Okay. If I want to be even more specific, ban ka also is. I gotta see if that's an ancient rule. Okay, but I'm pretty sure that that's one that we do actually keep. Banak and is what? Now keep in mind, whenever we use the word and when it's in the front of a phrase, we're just using wa. But when it's the character and it's by itself, what is it? Wa what? Waban, exactly. Waban. You had it. Oh, Waban. Yeah. That's what. That's a ma. You just remember, na is just one less squiggly, right? So, well, there you go. Waban. Now go ahead and put the connectors. Waban. See that? Now, your grandson. How do we say that? Let me see. That's and your son and your grandson. It's Banak. Yeah. So what? You know what's crazy? Son and grandson is the same word in Hebrew. Just like how when we say your forefathers is the same as your fathers. Like we say forefathers, it could mean your great grandparents, your great granddad, or your actual dad, right? So when we say, grandson, we're saying Banak. But when we say any of the people that are below our lineage, meaning like the people that come after us, Banak is used when we say your grandson. Or when we say son, it's just Ban. That's why we say son of Zebulon, right? Because we're not Zebulon's literal son, but we come from that lineage, so it's still Ban. And as you see how even grandson and son both use the root word Ban, but we're saying your, so it's Banak. So go ahead and put the connector there. Banak. There you go. Now all is Kal. Kal. Kala? No, Kal. It's just two characters. Look at use the phone because the phone will tell you. Oh. Call. Yeah, the screen looks much better. I'm surprised that nobody mentioned that because we could have fixed that earlier. Yeah, to go ahead and connect them now. Call. There you go. The days. Was that Habanath? What does it say? Days. Yeah. Oh yeah, my bad. Yum ya. Yum ya. Ya. Start with the ya. Nah, that's ha. You're close though, because it looks like that. Remember ya is in Yahweh. What does that look like? Ya. There you go. Yum ya. Mhm. Ah. Or yum, right? And then just add another ya, because that's what it looks like, right, on the screen. You're just Syrian, so you're kind of getting calibrated to know how to just go back and forth, right? Yeah, yum ya. Of your life, the last one. Cha yayak. Cha. Remember, cha looks like a ladder, like as in Captain Khatazar. There you go. Yak. Chaya. Mm-hmm. There you go. Now put the ka. There you go. Yeah. No, those are just pronounced by them. That one's pronounced by itself, and then it's connected. Because remember, just like how we did Banak or Matazawak, we're sluggy. Your. So it's Chayayak. Mm-hmm. Kayayak. There you go. Most High in Christ. Now, let's take it word by word, and then we're gonna read the full sentence, or at least that part of that verse. Okay. So what we got? Ashar. Mm-hmm. What's the next one? Anakia. And we got what? Matazawak. Atha. Wabanak. Mm-hmm. Waban. Mm-hmm. Your grandson. What's that? Banak. Kal. Yamya. And then Chayayak. So we say it is which I command you and your son and your grandson all the days of your life. All right. So what we learned today is a little bit more vocabulary, is just kind of getting into the flow of things. We're picking up a lot of vocabulary just by going over verses in the scriptures. And we're just getting started on Deuteronomy chapter 6 because I want to get to Deuteronomy 6 and 4, where it starts to go into, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one, right? And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all that, so on and so forth. So we're building up to that. Let's read it one more time, and then we'll finish out. Ashar, Anakia, Matazawak, Atha, Wabanak, Waban, Banak, Kal, Yamya, Kayayak. Yeah. And so more practice, and it'll get more fluid. So you got the notes there. Yeah, just make sure you got everything. I'm not gonna erase what's on the board, so y'all got that on lock. And give Officer Taziar a hand because he did good. If anybody wants to come up and do whatever we're doing, one, if you want to just say, hey, let me get a stab at it, let me see if I got it, raise your hand. You know what I'm saying? We'll get you in there, or I'll just call on you. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's better to get that heebie-jeebies out the way. You know what I mean? If you ever had, what's it called? If you were too shy to speak in class, sometimes the best way to get it out the way was just be first, right? And then once you do that, you're like, oh, this ain't that bad. Some people have problems. Public was not a very, and yet all these words were by him, right? So definitely can relate to him. All right. What's up on that sentence? I don't know if I got room on the board. I mean, we could. Let me see. That maybe prolonged your days. We should be able to squeeze that on there. Let me see. I don't know if the stream is picking up on it, but we'll put this here. So that may be prolonged your days. I like that though, because that just tells me that y'all are engaged in this. You want to finish it off? We'll definitely do that. I'm not against that. All right. So look, see. So that now here's a here's a real complicated version of the word that. Look at it. It says wa la ma'ain. La ma'ain. May be prolonged is ya rakan. Ya rakan. Your days. Oh, here we go. Here's what we saw before. Look, the day. Yeah, your days is what? Yamayak. Why? Because we have to add your in there. And so it changes. It said instead of yamya, since we add the car in there, we didn't have to make that the connector instead of these the connectors. So then it's what? Yamayak. Or it could be yamyak. I think it's yamayak though. I got to double check that. But y'all see that, right? Some of those possessive adjectives change the way it's connected. So you got to keep that in mind too. All right. But we'll let that go ahead and be as it is. My phone's about to die anyways. All right. Go ahead and get that on the board. Y'all did excellent today. I appreciate y'all coming to class. You know what I'm saying? Staying locked in. That's how we get this thing done, man. All right. We're gonna go ahead and close it out. Couple y'all, let me go ahead and get up there so I can do the salute. I just need to charge this damn phone because all right. So I hope that that was pretty informative. You know what I'm saying? The water for y'all that tuning in. Of course, we're gonna be doing more of Genesis chapter 2. We finished verse 2, right? That was the end of verse 2. So we'll start off with Genesis chapter 6 and verse 3. But before we do that, we're gonna read verses 1 and 2 and then get to verse 3. And then we'll just continue from there. All right. So with that, we'll go ahead and salute y'all out. Yahweh Bashem Yahshua Brakatah to all the brothers. Brakatham to Yahweh Shamar Alathan Ba'ashem Yahushai to all the sisters. Again, we are the Isupk, started out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York in 1969. And we're here to teach the truth of the Bible for so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians, that they are the real Israelites that the Bible speaks of. Shalom.